Can we please have a moment of silence for all the people we've lost to the disease of addiction, and also for the still suffering addict out there? Thank you. My name is Brandon Lang. I'm a person in long-term recovery. For me, that means I haven't had a drink or a drug since May 13th of this year. Thank you. That moment of silence. Anytime I speak, I like to put that out there, because essentially that's how I got here. I came from a very low place, and it was because of my family and my friends and people like everybody in here that prayed for me, and now I'm on the other side, and it feels amazing. So I grew up in Oregon, Wisconsin. My dad's name is Mark. My mom's name is Peggy. I had a very good childhood. Some of the earliest memories, I remember our family was really close, and we did a lot of, all the holiday functions. I mean, it was a tight-knit family, and we were middle class. We weren't rich or anything, but they took care of me. One of my earliest memories is, I think I was like 2 or 3, and my mom had left my dad, and we were living in an apartment, and it didn't really make any sense to me why they were split up. And that was, it was what it was. Like, I would see Dad on a pretty consistent basis, but they just weren't living together. So they ended up getting back together when I was about 4 and 5, and that's when my brother was born. And that's when my awareness to the real situation, what was going on with my family, and my mom and dad fought a lot, and not physically, just verbally, and they got a divorce when I was about 8 or 9, and that was really hard on me. I remember being caught in the struggle of what do I do? Do I like mom more? Do I like dad more? Well, mom's moving out. I was always torn. And my mom moved out, and she stayed in Oregon for a year, and she met a guy, and she really liked this guy, got engaged, and then we moved up to South Prairie, and that was back in 5th grade. And at that point, I knew that my mom did this to my dad, and I am going to totally rebel and retaliate. And so I wanted to be down with Dad's, but my dad was working 2 jobs. It was really hard for him to just be home for us, and we ended up having to move in with our mom up in Sauk. And from kindergarten to 4th grade, I've obtained friends. I hang out with people. I mean, it was an awesome childhood, and to take me out of that and bring me into Sauk, I had a resentment towards my mom for years and years and years. I moved up to Sauk. I had 1 or 2 friends, but I really wasn't putting myself out there. I was just nervous. I was a new kid in a new school. So as that rebellion continued, I acted out in school. It wasn't because I wasn't smart. It was because I didn't care. And anything Like I treated my mom like crap. And so I was getting horrible grades. Summer school, 6th and 7th and 8th grade, we kind of lived out in the country, so it was really hard for me to like meet kids and hang out with kids. You know, people were going to football games and stuff, and I was the kid riding the bus home and staying at home. So I clung on to like 2 or 3 people. High school, you know, freshman year, a lot more people. I still couldn't find that niche, you know, that kind of group of people that, you know, that we all hang out with. I noticed the cliques, you know, and I just, like, I couldn't fit in anywhere. I couldn't. And you know, I always felt apart. Always. So the bad grades continued. I wasn't able to take driver's ed until I was like 16 and a half. And like the kids at school were making fun of me for that because like I was the only one who wasn't driving, and it was because I was getting horrible grades. And in our household, you needed to be average or better to, you know, drive. So I eventually talked my mom into allowing me to go down to my dad's house for the summer of my junior year. So it was right after junior year was done. I talked to him to let me stay the summer with my dad. And that was just, oh, it's gonna be great. You know, I get to see my old friends and stay up late at night, throw water balloons at cars. Within 3 weeks of me being down there, I tried my first drug, which was marijuana. And I didn't get high. I was trying to act all goofy with everybody else that was, and I still felt alone. Like I still felt just not a part of anything. So I continued to smoke though, because I knew that after a while, like I'd start to feel the effects, and I did. And I was smoking I was smoking about 2 to 3 times a week before I got into my senior year. So the summer of junior year's ends, I go up to mom's house, and now I'm smoking weed. Later on, like November of that year, I got my first job working as a busser at a restaurant. And of course, if anybody knows anything about the restaurant business, I mean, there's a lot of drugs and a lot of drinking in the restaurant business, and I was exposed to, I was exposed to a lot more drinking, and at that point I started smoking cigarettes. So I got that job, and they made me feel a part of. Finally I found my group of people, you know, and we would go and party after work. And I was still getting crappy grades. Like I barely graduated high school, and like mom helped me talk to the teachers and get all the assignments in. So by the time I graduated high school in 2005, I was addicted to marijuana, smoking at least 2 or 3 times a day, and continuing with nicotine, of course. 2 days after I graduated, before my graduation party at my mom's house, I moved down to dad's. That was the spot. And I moved, I came back up for the party, and then I didn't see my mom very often. So that's when I got like a full-time job. I started working landscape. When I was 19 years old, I was really involved with, all I did was go to work and hang out with friends. That's all I did. There was no like pursuing any goals. I was paying, whatever I had to for gas, and that was it. So I was hanging out with friends all the time, and that's when I started experimenting with other drugs. Marijuana wasn't doing it. Drinking really wasn't doing it either. When I was 19, I tried cocaine for the first time. Of course I liked it, you know. I experimented with mushrooms, LSD. That was basically in between 19 and 21. I was experimenting with all these drugs while maintaining a marijuana habit every day. But I still didn't think I had a problem because all the people I hung out with had the jobs. Like everything looked good from the outside, but I felt horrible on the inside. Like just literally wanting to die. So I turned 21, and it's not really all it's cracked up to be. We went out to the bars, you know. My drinking got a little bit heavier, but I was just, I don't know, I never really considered myself an alcoholic until I found recovery, and I know that I have the ability to abuse alcohol, so yeah, between, 19 and 21, 22, I was just kind of all over the place, just like trying different things. I've had a couple different jobs in between there, The unmanageability piece of my life was just like right in my face, and I wanted to block it out. And in between there, I was moving from dad's house to Madison, dad's house to Madison. Within 3 weeks, I'm doing it every day. Like literally just like that. And my marijuana habit like decreased and my opiate level increased. I mean, just immensely. I maintained that job for about a month, and then I was getting sick. I couldn't go to work, so I ended up having to quit my job. Then it's like, where do I find the money? So I started borrowing money, and then I started stealing money. So I was 20, I think it was like 22 and a half. And I couldn't find any money one day, and I went up to my mom's house when they were gone to work. I was living down in Oregon, so it's like an hour drive. I drove all the way there. I essentially broke into their house because, I knew the garage code, but I still, they were unaware of me going there. I stole like $180 and some jewelry from my mother and went down to Madison, pawned it, found the drug dealer, got high. Next day, I'm sick, I need to get high. Let's go get more money. And it's not because I don't love my family. I absolutely love my family. It's just the disease of addiction had me. It had me long before I tried opiates or before I experimented in any of that stuff. I look at the disease of addiction started when I was, 9th and 10th grade, when I was like feeling, alone. When I was using video games as a way to kind of zone out to life, Anything that makes me feel numb, like I want more of it. So the next day I go get high, steal more money. By the end of the week, my parents found out that I had stolen, and they gave me 2 ultimatums. They said, we're gonna call the police and have you arrested, or you're gonna get help. And never been to jail before, and at that point. And I said, I will take the help. At that point, I was done. I was like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm hurting my friends, my family, most of all me. So I went into a 30-day inpatient treatment facility in Madison, Wisconsin called Tularian. By week 2, I had the disease of addiction all figured out. And I'm like, I got this. I'm just not going to use opiates. I'm going to go back to drinking and smoking weed, and that's going to be all right, perfect. What's worse, or not worse, but my parents were on board with that, because when I was smoking and drinking, I wasn't stealing from them. Day 28, I'm in treatment, and I go to an outside 12-step meeting, and I go and get high. And then I come back to the treatment center. Day 30, I'm graduating. People are giving me hugs, saying, "Oh yeah, good luck. We'll see you back here. Coming back for the meetings, and good job." And I'm sitting there with like 2 days clean, just like. I had my buddy pick me up from treatment. We go up to Devil's Lake, and we smoke and we drink. Come back down to Dad's house. I'm going to live at Dad's house. I get my old job back. I'm going to just back up here real quick. I had a job at a gas station, and my disease, when I was using oxys, I was stealing from them, and they found out about it, and they fired me, but they didn't press charges. The boss is actually one of my dad's close friends, so he felt like, okay, well, we don't want him to have any legal consequences. While I was in treatment, I had called him. I actually got my job back. So a week goes by, I'm living at Dad's house, I start my job. Things are going well. They're like, "Man, Brandon, you've changed. You're just a new person." And I'm just like, yeah, I'm really, I feel good. 2 weeks later, my drug dealer comes into the gas station, not knowing that I am working there. And he asked me, because obviously I got more life in my face, like I've gained weight. And he's like, "Man, you look different." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good, man, looking good." And he's like, "Okay, well, you know where to find me." And it instantly, like, a light bulb went off, and I was relapsing in my head far before I picked up. A couple weeks later, I'm using oxys yet again. And it got worse. They always say that each relapse gets worse. Well, it got worse. Like they had shared about the oxys were harder to get. They changed the how they make them, and I was introduced to heroin. And I tried heroin, and it was essentially the end. I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't amazing for me. It took every worry away, but it ruined my life. So by week 3 or 4 of using heroin, I'm getting sicker. I start committing crimes, not only to my parents but to retail stores. I start stealing from them. I got my first retail theft ticket, and I ended up in jail for 2 days. And I called my dad. I said, "Dad, can you bail me out?" He said, "Absolutely not." I was like, man. I got out. I called a friend that I haven't talked to in probably a couple of years, and I said, "Hey man, can you borrow me $20? And I went and got high right away. Progressive, incurable, fatal. I ended up in my second treatment center. This time was different, only the fact that at that point, I had spent 9 days in jail. I got out on the bail monitoring program, and essentially there was like restrictions. Like if I use, I'm gonna end up in jail again, probably for longer, maybe even prison. The charges I was facing was a burglary, and I think that retail theft ticket kind of combined. It's just logistics. So I ended up in treatment. I'm like, I'm on this ankle bracelet. I want to learn as much as I can because clearly the first time didn't work. So what do I got to do differently? I went in there. I just soaked up all the information that they were giving me because I don't want to die an addict. I don't want to die a using addict. So a couple weeks in, I start going to the 12-step programs, and I'm like meeting people, and I'm willing to give up everybody that has ever been my friend or a supposedly friend and start a new way of life. So I got out of treatment. I went to a sober living facility called Pathways, and I was there 2 months, and there's no real like time frame for these types of places, but I know it's usually a lot longer for a person to be in this. And 2 months, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back to my dad's house where I used all the time because like I can't afford it. My dad's paying my sober living expense. And all the members in the house would be like, no, you shouldn't do this. You're gonna relapse. This is a horrible mistake. And I'm like, I'm gonna show you. And so I left, I went back to Dad's house, and I ended up staying clean for 19 months. I got really involved with, other organizations, coming out and speaking. I got involved with the recovery rally, and I was going to a ton of 12-step meetings, and I was just immersed, like I was in the middle of the boat. They always talk about that. It's like, if you're on the outside, you should get in the middle, because like if you start falling one way, you got your support network to kind of guide you back into the boat. So yeah, I was clean 14 months. I had 2 jobs. I was self-supporting, and it was time for me to get my own place. And I got a place with another one of my friends who was also in recovery. And we both had a year clean, and that was kind of like the thing, like you gotta have at least probably a year to, So we found this place, we got the place. It was awesome. It was, I was clean. I was being able to enjoy life. We had a ping pong table in the garage, and we had like a foosball table downstairs, and it was like a bachelor pad, but yet we were like completely sober. I hit my 19 months. Things are going good. I'm staying clean, but I'm not reaching out. I stopped going to as many meetings as I was going to. I ended up in the emergency room because I had a kidney stone. 19 months clean. Recovering addict goes into a hospital. I'm good. I got this. They give me medicine while I'm in there trying to figure out what's wrong with me. And then they hand me a bottle of hydrocodone. Well, they didn't hand it to me. It was a prescription, and I had to go fill it. So at any point in time, I could have stopped myself and called somebody and been like, hey, I'm about to be on this prescription. Can you help me manage it? But I didn't. I get home. I take what it says on the bottle. 2 days, the bottle's gone, and I'm looking for heroin. Two months later, I leave my house because I don't want to put my friend in jeopardy. I'm using at the house, and I said, I cannot do this. I'm sorry, but I gotta leave. I bailed on my rent. I just said, you know, your recovery is really important, and I don't want to mess that up. My fail-safe is my father's house. My dad has enabled me a lot of my life. At that point, things were getting really bad. I was counting my dad into money. I got prescribed Suboxone. I was selling Suboxone. Then my next prescription, I tell my dad to hold on to it for me, give me a thing a day. So I'd store them up, still using the whole time. Store them up, sell them. I mean, ugh. My dad saved my life. I had stolen from him. I had stolen possessions, all that stuff. I got another ultimatum again with my family. So we're going to kick you out to the street. This time there was no police involved, but hey, we're going to kick you out into the street, or we want you to get help. And I was like, okay, I need help. I'm going to go. I went to the detox center in Madison. I stayed there overnight. I woke up sick and I wanted to leave so bad. So I did. I left. My drug dealer came and picked me up. I conned somebody out of $100. I went and got high. Called Dad. Dad, what do? Come sit. He's like, no. I'm like, Brian, I can't do this anymore. He's like, you better call detox and see if you can get back in there. So I did, and they fortunately let me. 2 days in detox. I'm crawling out of my skin. Literally can't stand it. Going back and forth. Knees shaking, sweating, just the worst feeling. Not to mention my moral compass is just out the window. What I think is my sane mind, I call a taxi. I have no money for this taxi. They pick me up at detox. They drive me all the way down to Oregon, which is about a $60 to $70 taxi ride. My dad finds out that I left detox. He knows exactly where I'm going. We're parked in my dad's driveway, and I'm gonna break in. I'm gonna break the back window. I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna steal something. At that point, I had forged 9 checks that my dad still didn't know about. I broke into the back window. I was like deciding what I was gonna take that he may not notice. I get out of my dad's house. I get back into the taxi, and 4 squad cars pull up. And that was it. I was like, okay, he is serious. Every time I've ever been arrested, I just like break down not like bawling tears. I break down and just say, yep, this is what I did. Hey, I broke my dad's back window, burglary. I forged 9 checks, forgery, 9 counts, felony. Oh, and I'm also on bail jumping. I ended up in jail for, 9 days. Got back into the 3rd treatment. I spent 14 days there, got out, went into sober living. Things were going well. Seems to be a continuous pattern. I ended up getting kicked out of the sober living house because I had had 3 other kidney stones in that year. So they were prescribing me the medication. People were aware of me taking the medication, holding off, making me take it as prescribed, and I was still abusing it. Still. The sober house finally they're like, man, you can't live here anymore. I moved back in with Dad. One day I take his car, I go to get heroin. I ended up like nodding out at the wheel. I veer off the side of the road, over the curb, back onto the street. I'm out on bail. I get out and I look at the car, granted I'm high, and I see that the tire's, flat. And I'm like, oh, I got this. So I go to like jack up the car, and an officer pulls up behind me. And I'm like, act straight, act straight. My eyes are dilated. They know exactly what to look for. And they asked me when my last use was. And I said, I don't know, a couple days ago. I do some field sobriety tests, and I fail miserably. I can't walk straight. With your first OWI offense, you don't get arrested. They usually take your blood. And then they would like for somebody to pick you up, right? So I called my dad. He's like, you're out on bail. Like, how are they not arresting you? So I gave the phone to the officer, and my dad's like, yeah, he's out on bail. And immediately I'm handcuffed, and I go into jail. And all my other jail experiences has been like a week, 9 days. I'm waiting for my first pre-trial. I'm like, okay, give me a signature bond. $3,000 bail. Then the next court appearance is not for another month. I ended up spending 93 days in jail. I got out on probation, 3 years probation, and I got sentenced to 3 felonies. So I am a felon: burglary, forgery, and bail jumping. So I was sentenced to that, and the judge told me that she could sentence me to years in prison. And that affected me. It was like, whoa, I want to see my family. So I got out. I went immediately into a sober living house called Community Home. I got back into school. I ended up getting a 3.0 the first semester, and things were just going great. I mean, my life took just a 180 turn, and I was living it. I spent 9 months in the sober living place, and then right before my 1-year anniversary, I decided to get my own place. I think it's time. I get my own place. 3 weeks later, I'm relapsing. Two months later, I had my first overdose. I almost died. I wake up, and there's a bunch of people over me, and they're yelling my name, and all I can do is see them, and then I can hear them, and then I can barely talk, and then they're putting me into an ambulance. I'm going to the hospital. I'm handcuffed to the gurney, and I'm bawling my eyes out in the hospital. I'm just bawling my eyes out. My dad and brother came and saw me, and then I was sent off to jail. That's actually where I met Julie. Julie came in about a day and a half into me being in there, and she offered me help. She said, you're the victim here. Those people that sold you the drugs are bad people, and we want to get them off the street. She offered to help me, and I accepted the help, and I got out. And, I didn't stay clean though. I want to go to my last day of using. So it's May 12th, or I'm going back up to, I was in a meeting. I was sharing about how I can't stop using, and this person with 55 years clean, I share this, oh, it's so ugly, it's just, ugh. And I walk out of the meeting, I'm in tears. This guy with 55 years clean comes up to me and he says, "You need help, don't you?" He's like, I'll try and help you. And at that point, that was like that surrender. Like, oh, thank you. So we researched this place called The Retreat. It's up in Minnesota. I went there for 30 days. My last day using, I haven't been able to essentially get high for years. So my last day using was just very unsuccessful, not happy, knowing that I'm going to treatment for another one. That's now four. And I woke up the next day and I'm clean. It's my first day clean. And I remember my stepdad comes down to me. He was the first person that I see clean. And he shakes my hand. Me and him are not like huge huggers. So he shook my hand and he said, "I wish you well, and I wish you luck." And we drove 4.5 hours up to Minnesota. And my mom and my brother dropped me off. And it was this treatment center that was based on the 12 steps. And on the way back to the car, as I was like seeing my family out, and I'm about to start this whole new journey, they asked me, like, do I know the 12 steps? And I just recited them all. Like, the worst feeling for me was being out there on a relapse, knowing, well aware of what recovery really is, and not being able to get back here. Like, I actually have knowledge, I don't have like any answers. All I have is my experience, like what worked for me. Because what worked for me may not work for other people. So I start this journey. I remember my second day, we're in this meeting, and the guy opens up, and he's like, "All right, well, we like to start this meeting, and we get down on our knees and we pray." And I'm like looking over at him, and like, this guy is not gonna get me down on my knees. I'm not gonna pray, But something happened, and I got down on my knees and started praying. And it was at that moment that I realized that I can do something different. Like, I have to do everything different. So, like, what worked for that 19 months may not work this time. Some stuff worked. I can use that. Some stuff didn't, so I definitely don't need to use that. So I started praying. I really got into like the higher power stuff. And, not a day goes by that I don't thank my higher power for my life. Today recovery is a gift. Before I was like, ugh, people sober, ugh. Like, how can you do that? I just like it's just beyond words. Like, I came from a point where I was either gonna die a using addict, I was gonna end up committing suicide, or without recovery, I was just gonna end up insane. So being in recovery has allowed me to learn about who I am. What are my values? What are my morals? Like constantly peeling back the layers of the onion to really figure out who I am. And I'm still learning, you know. That's the thing about recovery is like, I can't tell you if I'm gonna be clean for the rest of my life. But I know that I'm gonna stay clean today. And that's all that matters. I keep it on a daily basis. I wake up every morning, I ask my higher power to keep me clean today and help me be of service to others. Like being able to share with you guys is so, it just warms my heart. It really does. And it helps me stay clean. So today I live in a sober living house, and I committed to a year to that sober living house. I'm currently the president of that house. Basically, I do on the phone interviews and help people get acclimated with the house, and it's been really powerful. I have more true friends in my life than ever before. My family loves and cares about me unconditionally. Even when I was using, they still loved me unconditionally. But today, like, I show up. I show up for my family. I show up for my life. I am a good son. I am a good brother. And I am a productive member of society. Like I was a menace to society. I am fully self-supporting. That's a big thing for me because, you know, living off dad for a long time. And now, like I get up for work today and I'm proud. And it's all because of recovery. Organizations like Faith, it's just, man, we can do this together. We need everybody. Not one person can do this. That's all I have. Thanks.